Alright, what's up, Dragon Brood? We're going to be doing something different today for Avatar preview season because a literal pile of cards just got previewed. But we also need to talk about the things that came out before. So we're going to call this Day 0 and Day 1. We're going to try to cover everything as fast as we can in this video. So I apologize if this is long, but grab your favorite beverage. Let's go. Right, we're going to start here with Aang's Iceberg. It's 2 and a white for an enchantment. It has flash. When this enchantment enters, exile up to one other target non-land permanent until this enchantment leaves the battlefield. It has Waterbending 3. You can sacrifice this permanent. If you do, scry 2. And then while paying a waterbend cost, you can tap your artifacts and creatures to help each pay for 1. So basically, it's like Convoke for the cost in a way. But yeah, this is actually fine. We see a lot of versions of this card. It's a white 3 or 4 mana thing that exiles something until it leaves the battlefield. The fact that it has flash, though, is actually pretty sweet. Appa, Steadfast Guardian, 2 white for a 3/4 Bison ally. Also has flash and flying. When it enters, airbend any number of other target non-land permanents you control. You exile them, and while each one is exiled, its owner may cast it for 2 rather than its mana cost. So basically, you can save some of your creatures at instant speed, and then you can replay them for 2, which is actually pretty sweet. I think that ability is going to be very handy. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, you create a 1/1 white ally creature token. So you don't even have to use it just to save stuff. You can also just get extra value out of it. Especially if you have stuff that's already cheap to cast anyway, or just cost 2 or 3. You don't mind just replaying it for the cost if they all have ETB triggers or something. So yeah, kind of a cool card all around. I don't know if you need to build around this one, because it is legendary, but it could be a neat addition to a lot of decks. Momo, Friendly Flyer. 1 for a 1/1 flying lemur bat ally. The first non-lemur creature spell with flying you cast during each of your turns costs 1 less to cast. Whenever another creature you control with flying enters, Momo gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So if you're playing this alongside other bats, birds, things like that, they'll cost 1 less. And Momo gets a bonus until end of turn. A little bit of a weird card. I don't know if this merits being a rare or not. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. If you're playing a bat deck, I guess you could play it, but the other reality is a lot of the cards in those decks kind of only cost 1 or 2 anyway, and they all do something to gain life or drain life or some such. So I'm not sure where this has a home just yet. Yue, the Moon Spirit. 3 and a blue for a 3/3 Legendary Spirit ally. Has flying and vigilance. You waterbend 5. Then you can tap this. You may cast a non-creature spell from your hand without paying its mana cost. And again, while paying a waterbending cost, you can tap your artifacts and creatures to help pay for 1 each. Ooh boy, this is on the verge of being either really clunky or really, really good. 3/3 flying vigilance for 4 is actually okay. But the fact that you could then play anything, well, any non-creature spell from your hand without paying the cost could be really good. I mean, in a weird way, maybe this is another card that gives the Omniscience decks another way to trick something onto the battlefield, right? I don't know where this is going to go, but it feels like that type of deck. So maybe it doesn't show up in a ton of places, but it's going to do some pretty rough things that you're not going to want to deal with if your opponent has this across the battlefield. The Rise of Sozin. 4 black for a saga that destroys all creatures. And then choose a card name, search opponent's graveyard, hand, and library for up to 4 cards with that name and exile them. Then that player shuffles. And then chapter 3 is exile this saga. Return to the battlefield transformed under your control. Before even looking at the backside, the simplest thing about this is that it's a 6 mana board sweeper that also gets to exile something and then get you a 5/5 creature. The creature side, Fire Lord Sozin, says it's a human noble. It has menace, it has firebending. Whenever this creature attacks, add 3 red. This mana lasts until end of combat. When Fire Lord Sozin deals combat damage to a player, you may pay X. When you do, put any number of target creature cards with total mana value X or less from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So that's actually pretty crafty, right? Because now you've destroyed all the creatures. Things are in the graveyard. You can choose to leave some there, so maybe you can try to get them with Firelord Sozin, paying at least 3, and because you'll get 3 free mana, and then some to get all. It's actually any number of target creatures. So if they have a bunch of stuff that costs 4 or less, you just get all of them. So yeah, this is actually kind of a sweet card. If for nothing else, just for the front side. The back side is actually kind of a bonus. You almost don't even care if you get it or not. And for the record, we're just trying to hit up most of the rares and mythics unless there's a really standout common or uncommon that I just happen to see at a glance. But we have Fated Firepower. X red, red, red. It's an enchantment. It has flash. When this enchantment enters with X fire counters on it, if a source you control will deal damage to an opponent or permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage plus an amount of damage equal to the number of fire counters on this enchantment instead. I don't know. We've had versions of this card before where it's like deal triple damage, deal double damage, deal damage plus X for the number of copies or whatever. We've always had something like this, but they don't tend to really make the cut that often in 60 card play. Now for Commander, this could be a little bit of a different story depending on what you're playing, but for 60 card, which is what we're going to focus on for the most part, I don't know where this would even go because the burn decks are already going to be more efficient without this. I don't think they want to even take turn 4 or 5 to put 2 counters on this. I don't know if that's really even necessary, especially considering you can just play Haste Dragons for that cost. So yeah, neat card, but probably only gets played in Commander. Redirect Lightning, just a 1 red instant lesson. As an additional cost to cast this spell, pay 5 life or 2 mana. Change the target of target spell or ability with a single target. We tend to have versions of this over the years, and they always cost 2 or 3 anyway. The interesting thing with this one is it could cost 3, like some of the others we've seen, or it could just be 1 and pay 5 life. For 1 mana to protect something from a spell counter or from a removal spell, I don't mind this, actually. I think this is a fine and reasonable card, and we'll probably see some play. Now, probably more in best of 3, so it can go into some sideboards. But depending on the metagame, it's not unreal if a couple of these showed up in the main deck of a few lists. Avatar Aang. I think we've seen a couple of versions of this, but it's red, green, white, blue. Notice no black, because black is the bad guys in this, and they're the Fire Nation. A human avatar ally. It's a 4/4 flying firebending 2. So when it attacks, you'll get 2 mana, 2 red mana. Whenever you waterbend, earthbend, firebend, or airbend, you draw a card. Then if you've done all 4 this turn, you transform Aang into Aang, Master of Elements. It has flying, spells you cast cost Wooburg, so 1 of each color mana less to cast. Doesn't reduce the generic mana. It reminds you of that in the reminder text. At the beginning of each upkeep, you may transform Aang, Master of Elements. If you do, you gain 4 life, draw 4 cards, put 4 +1/+1 counters on him, and he deals 4 damage to each opponent. So this is pretty wild. So the front side, actually fine. And you do have to have 4 different color mana, but you get a 4/4, it has flying, and it has firebending, so that's actually pretty cool. The thing is, you'd have to build around all the bending abilities to be able to do all of them, but if you do all of them in a turn, the payoff's pretty big. You get a 6/6 flyer that reduces the cost of all your spells, but if you don't even want that, you can just take the upside, which is a bunch of 4s, basically, turn it back to Aang, the regular side, and then you get the 4 life, the 4 cards, the 4 counters, and deal 4. So this is actually pretty damn cool. How often are you going to get to flip it? I think that's the real question. Now, if you had some other way to flip it without doing all that stuff, it'd probably be fantastic. But I think it's going to take a little bit of work. So while this is a neat card, I don't know if it's going to be that popular. Firelord Zuko. It's red, white, black for a 2/4 human noble ally. That's Firebending X, where X is Firelord Zuko's power. Whenever you cast a spell from exile, and whenever a permanent you control enters from exile, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. This is actually pretty interesting. A 3 mana 2/4, reasonably playable. It does generate you a minimum of 2 mana during the combat step, which is good. And then anytime you cast a spell from exile or play a permanent from exile, you get a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, which also in turn makes more mana available for this. So I think you could do this. There's enough red cards that, exile 1, 2, or 3 cards. You have access to them till the beginning of the next end step, stuff like that. I think if you wanted to put those in this type of deck, more than reasonable. And if any number of them are other things that let you play at instant speed, yeah, you can use that mana during combat, not worry about it, get more cards. Like, yeah, I think this is reasonable to build around, actually. This not even build around. It could just be a key part to a deck that's already doing a lot of heavy digging. Katara, the Fearless, green, white, blue for a 3/3 human warrior ally that's legendary. If a triggered ability of an ally you control triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. Yes, people will play with this card. I mean, there's enough cards in set that are just going to be allies in general. A bunch of them have triggered abilities. Katara is just going to be good with that stuff. I don't think there's really, like, it's just a reasonable 3/3. Doesn't do anything on its own. It's just a 3/3 body, but allows everything else to trigger multiple times. So, yeah, this will find some amount of play, I'd imagine. Then we have Katara, Water Tribe's Hope. 2 white, blue, blue for a 3/3. Again, human warrior ally with vigilance. When Katara enters, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. You can waterbend X creatures you control have base power and toughness XX until end of turn. Okay, for some reason I skipped a word there. X can't be 0. Activate only during your turn. And yeah, I don't know about this. 5 mana 3/3 with vigilance. Though it does make you another 1/1. So technically it's like a 4/4 split across 2 bodies. And then you can waterbend to give your creatures XX until no, they're just become base power and toughness XX until end of turn. Actually, this is actually not bad. It's a risk because it's a lot for what you get. But if it sticks even one turn and you have like 3 creatures, you're like, great, all my creatures are now 5/5 and get to attack. So yeah, and it doesn't look like you even have to tap her for the water bin. So you can just water bin 5 since you already have 5 mana. So yeah, this could probably be a game ender in some decks if you don't actually deal with this. Sokka, Bold Boomeranger. Blue-red for a 1/1 human warrior ally that's a legend. Whenever Sokka enters, discard up to 2 cards, then draw that many. When you cast an artifact or lesson spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Sokka. Well, 2 things here. One, if you do want to go ahead and build the artifact deck or the lesson deck, obviously Sokka is going to be a card for that list. But if you want another card that digs, that just gets a general benefit from you playing some lessons you might already want to play, because it depends on what we see that's playable. But there's a lot of decent artifacts you could still want to play. This might just go in that type of deck. I mean, it's another way to dig and fill your graveyard. Don't think you necessarily want to play it in anything that cares about Cauldron or anything like that. But there are already some red-blue artifact things that have been on the cusp but never really made it all the way through. This could be neat being another card that gets a benefit from artifacts. So we'll see. This at least has a chance, I'll say that. It has the right words to find its way into a few different decks. Toph, the first Metalbender. 1 green, red, white for a 3/3 human warrior ally that's legendary. Non-token artifacts you control are lands, in addition to their other types. They don't gain the ability to tap for mana. They just happen to be lands. At the beginning of your end step, Earthbend 2. Target land you control becomes a 0/0 creature that with haste, it's still a land, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. When it dies or is exiled, return it to the battlefield tapped. Okay, something to note about this card, because of the way it's worded. Any of the artifacts that give you like an extra turn or some absurd ability, and then they get exiled, return to the battlefield. So you'll just get to do that every turn, potentially, if Toph stays out. So that's something that you need to know about how the ability works, because it gives that ability to all of your artifacts, because they happen to now be land. That aside, this is actually pretty cool. I mean, having lands become just 2/2s, and then you don't even worry about them dying or anything, I'm kind of here for it. This is a cool card. And I have a feeling that someone's going to find something a little bit degenerate to do with this. Also, I thought it should be noted that you can pull these versions of the card, which is super sweet, because these are like the shadowy figures that are demonstrating the moves and stuff in the beginning of the series, in the intro. So that's actually kind of neat. Just a quick look at a couple of lessons here. Abandoned attachments. It's 1 and a split mana, red or blue. It's a lesson. It's an instant. You may discard a card. If you do, draw 2 cards. Obviously, there's lots of decks that want to discard and draw. Interestingly, you can play this in blue or red decks that are wanting to do this. Airbending Lesson, 2 and a white. It's an instant. Airbend target non-land permanent. So you exile it, and then while it's exiled, its owner may cast it for 2 rather than its mana cost. And you draw a card. So I don't mind this one. If nothing else, you get to save a creature potentially and get a card. Don't know if that's good enough on its own, but it's at least neat to consider. Azula Always Lies. 1 and a black for a lesson. You choose 1 or both. Target creature gets -1/-1 till a turn. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. This is reasonable, actually, because it can be its own combat trick, right? By giving something -1 and giving yours +1, it's almost like giving a creature +2/+2 to be able to block. But you could also remove a 1/1 or 1 toughness thing and then give yours +1/+1 to make it a bigger block so you can block something else. This is not an insane card, but if you're already looking to play lessons, more than reasonable. Bender's Waterskin. 3 generic mana for artifact. Untap this artifact during each other player's untap step. Add 1 mana of any color. This could randomly be useful in control type decks, right? Where you may want to play an artifact or an enchantment or something during your turn, but you still want mana up to be able to counter something on your opponent's turn. This could be the type of card that helps you out. This one I just thought was interesting. It's Haru Hidden Talents. 1 and a green for a 1/1, has human peasant ally. It's legendary. Whenever another ally you control enters, Earthbend 1. So a target land becomes a 0/0 and gets a +1/+1 counter on it. The interesting thing is, this doesn't only last on the turn. You get to put a counter on it. The counter stays. And then when it dies or is exiled, return to the battlefield tap. So you can just build a bigger army as you're getting all this earthbending stuff. And it appears you can also just target any land multiple times. So you can just keep putting counters on it. And if you have other earthbenders that do that, like maybe you just get a really big dumb land. If your opponent kills it, it just resets back to a land. I don't know if that's a thing or not, but it sounds cool, so maybe. This I found interesting. Heartless Act. You can pay colorless and a black to choose 1. Destroy target creature with no counters on it, or you can remove up to 3 counters from target creature. Now, that being said, we've had Heartless Act before. Just didn't really expect to see it here in Avatar, but cool card and kind of has sort of fitting art, which is neat. Fun character card, Hei Bai, Spirit of Balance. 2 generic mana, and you can have your choice of either 2 black or 2 white. It's a 3/3 Bear Spirit. When it enters or attacks, you can sacrifice another creature or artifact. If you do, put it 2 +1/+1 counters on Hei Bai. When Hei Bai leaves the battlefield, put its counters on target creature you control. So if you're just doing +1/+1 counters, or you have stuff you want to sacrifice to the graveyard or whatever, like this could fit into a few places. It's a fun card. I don't know how strong it is, but could be a 1 or 2 of inclusion in a couple of lists. Another character card for those that may have missed it, Suki, Kyoshi Warrior, 2 generic, and your choice of 2 green or white. It is an X4, and its power is equal to the number of creatures you control. Whenever this attacks, create a 1/1 white ally creature token that's tapped and attacking. So minimum, realistically, it's probably going to be like a 2/4-ish creature. You attack, you make another 1/1 that pumps its power. Is this going to get played? I don't know. It does generate a token every turn, technically. But is that good enough? I mean, it doesn't really do much beyond that. It does cost 4 mana. But if you do have a deck that cares about tokens or it cares about allies, that's probably where this is going to fit in. Hakoda, Selfless Commander. 3 and a white for a 3/5 human warrior ally with vigilance. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast ally spells from the top of your library. You can sacrifice Hakoda. Creatures you control get +0/+5 and gain indestructible until end of turn. Yeah, this is fine. Just a quality card. The interesting thing is, it doesn't only protect allies. Now, you can cast allies off the top of your library at any time, but if you sacrifice them, it actually protects all your creatures. Not just giving them indestructible, but +0/+5, which is good because any of the sweepers that would give creatures -4, -4, whatever, it actually does protect against that as well. So yeah, just kind of a cool card. I think this will probably see some amount of play in either allies or humans decks potentially. Sozin's Comet. 3 red red. Each creature you control gain. It's a sorcery. Each creature you control gains Firebending 5 until end of turn. So whenever you attack, they generate 5 red mana that will last until the end of combat. And it has Foretell. So for 2 and a red during a turn, you may pay 2 colorless and exile this card from your hand face down, and then you can cast it later for its Foretell cost. So you're still paying 5, but over the course of 2 turns, where you might only have a few mana, so you can say turn 2, put it aside. Maybe turn 4, where you only have 3, but you want to attack with a couple of things. You now pay the Foretell cost, you can generate some red mana. What you do with that mana, I have no idea, but you have it, so I don't know. I have a feeling this would be one of those cards that once somebody figures out what to do with it, it'll be something degenerate. So I wouldn't go crazy with it. It probably ends up in one specific type of deck, but it is a pretty strong ability. Airbender Ascension. 1 and a white for an enchantment. When this enchantment enters, airbend up to 1 target creature. Whenever a creature you control enters, put a quest counter on that enchantment. Whenever a creature you control enters, put a quest counter on this enchantment. Got it. At the beginning of your end step, if this enchantment has 4 or more quest counters on it, exile up to 1 target creature you control, then return to the battlefield under its owner's control. Wow. Okay. So this is really meant for a deck that's trying to blink your cards over and over and over, right? So the first time you play it, you pick something, you can exile it, then you can play it for 2 mana. But then every time you play a creature that just enters the battlefield, doesn't matter how or where, you get to put a quest counter on this. And then at the end of your turn, if it has 4 or more quest counters on it, you can exile up to 1 target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. There's an interesting thing here that I'm just realizing now that I'm reading it a second time, is that it doesn't actually say you have to remove those quest counters. So once it has 4, period, at the beginning of your end step, you get to just blink something. Yeah, if this enchantment has 4 or more quest counters on it, exile up to 1 target creature, then return it to the battlefield. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about removing the quest counters. So all you have to do is meet the requirement. Then after that, you just get to blink something every turn. That's actually really good. Here's another Momo. Oh, no, wait. That's the same Momo, just different artwork. My bad. The Legend of Kuruk. 2 white, or actually 2 blue. I don't know why I said white. It's a saga. Chapter 1 and 2, you scry 2, and then you can draw a card. And then at Chapter 3, this exile the saga, returns the battlefield transformed into the Avatar. So it's a 4/3. Whenever you cast a spell, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token. With this token can't block or be blocked by non-spirit creatures. Exhaust, you waterbend 20. Jeez. Take an extra turn after this one. Okay. Well, I'm not a fan of take extra turns things, so I hope this doesn't become a real thing. But I have to admit, the front side, actually not bad for several decks to scry 2 and then draw, so you're getting the best card of the next 3, potentially. And you get to do that twice, and then you have a 4/3 creature that every time you cast a spell, you're getting 1/1s, which, if you have any amount of mana open and your instant speed kill stuff or draw a card, you're just getting extra 1/1s. However, they can't block or be blocked except by spirits, so that's a whole thing. But yeah, this is actually just a reasonable card. I don't think it's crazy, but I think it's good enough for a couple of copies to show up in a few lists. Secret of Bloodbending. Surprisingly, they made this a blue card, but blue. So that's 4 blue for a sorcery that's a lesson. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you can waterbend 10, so you can spin some number of creatures to reduce the cost. You control target opponent during their next combat phase. If this spell's additional cost was paid, you control that player during their next turn instead. Exile this card. Alright, so you can control an opponent during their next combat phase. If this spell's additional cost... Oh, as an additional cost to cast a spell. I thought it was, okay, I misread that first line. This makes so much more sense now. So if you paid the extra 10, you get their whole turn. If not, you just get their combat. I mean, there are some like blue tempo-y flash type decks that could do something with this for 4 mana, force your opponent to attack with things so they can't block, or you get to block certain things of theirs in a way that's beneficial. This could maybe have some play. Now, how often do I think people are going to pay the whole 14 mana in some way, shape, or form? Not too often, I wouldn't imagine, but often enough that you still have to be concerned about it. Again, I'm not a fan of things that take extra turns, steal people's turns. I think that's just a bad mechanic to have in every single game I've ever played. But we'll see. This one at least feels somewhat balanced. We'll see how much it pops up, though. I love how in Avatar, so many of the creature types are just mashing stuff together. But this is a Tiger Sail. A blue for a 3/3 cat seal. That makes sense. Vigilance. At the beginning of your upkeep, tap this creature. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, untap this creature. So it's a 3/3 for 1, but it's only untapped if you are playing like the draw 2 type deck. If you are, it's more than reasonable, because then it has Vigilance, and that's actually pretty good. So yeah, I don't know. It kind of only goes in one sort of deck, I would imagine, so that's not all that great, but for the deck that can justify it, it might be okay. Wan Shi Tong Librarian, X blue blue for a 1/1 bird spirit. It has flash, flying, vigilance. When it enters, put X +1/+1 counters on them. Draw half X cards rounded down. Whenever an opponent searches their library, put a +1/+1 counter on Wan Shi Tong and draw a card. Wow. This card is really good, y'all. I mean, think about a control deck that just doesn't have much to do. You don't play anything they need to counter. I'm like, all right, during your end step, I'm just going to pay 5. So they flash in a 4/4 bird and then get to draw 2 cards. That on its own is good enough. Even if the creature dies, they basically paid 5 to get a removal spell out of your hand. Oh, I guess technically you would only draw 1 card because it's rounded down. So you'd have to do it for at least if you make it a 5, because you'd have to have X be 4. So that's 6 mana. But either way, you get to draw cards. Your opponent wastes a removal spell. That seems fine. And then just the added bonus that if an opponent searches their library, you get a +1/+1 counter. And draw a card. This card, yeah, we're going to see this card get played for sure. I can't imagine this card doesn't see some amount of play. Even in the decks that are just playing like the mono blue flash type creatures where you're trying to play everything on your opponent's turn, this is still reasonable there, right? You pay 4, you have a 3/3, and you still get to draw a card, and it has vigilance. So I'm okay with this card. Boiling Rock Rioter. It's a rogue ally human for 2 and a black for a 3/3 firebending 1. Tap an untapped ally you control. Exile target card from a graveyard. Whenever this creature attacks, you may cast an ally spell from among cards you own exiled with this creature. Ooh, this is interesting. So it's a creature card that just allows you to remove stuff from graveyards by just tapping an ally you control. So that's kind of cool. But then if you exile an ally spell, which could be yours or your opponent's, it just had to have been exiled with this creature, you can cast it. That's pretty neat. Well, you'd have to attack, so you do put it at risk to be able to cast the other card. But yeah, there's kind of a lot going on with this card for just being a random nothing character from the show. This is kind of neat. Day of Black Sun, X black black. Each creature with mana value X or less loses all abilities until end of turn. Destroy those creatures. This is a complicated board sweeper. But also, Wizards, we don't need board sweepers every single set. Standard's 3 years long. We have like 25 of them or something. We have plenty. Back to reviewing the card. Let's say you make this 3 mana, because that's reasonable. Most of the other black sweepers are like 5 or 6-ish. So you pay 5 mana. So each creature with mana value 3 or less loses all their abilities. and then destroy those creatures. This basically, because people are probably asking, like, why does that matter if the creatures are going to die? This basically turns off cards so they don't return from the battlefield, or when they die, they trigger a thing, and you get some number of treasure, or whatever the case is. This just says they just die, nothing triggers. I mean, it'll definitely get played. It's just meh to be excited about. The Fire Nation Drill, 2 black black. It is a 6/3 vehicle with trample. When it enters, you can tap it. When you do, destroy target creature with power 4 or less. Pay 1 permanence your opponents control, lose hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. You crew it for 2. Why do we keep doing this? What's the point? honestly. This is a rant, so give me like 20 seconds. Like, what's the point of having green creatures and or white creatures, but generally green creatures, have some amount of hexproof and indestructible so they can do something against the black, white, red decks regularly if you're just going to keep printing cards that remove indestructible and hexproof? And not like, I would almost be okay with it. This rant's getting a little long, but I'd almost be okay with it if those cards actually were mediocre, but they had that upside of being able to remove those. But we have stuff like Nowhere to Run that's flash and -3's a thing, and then randomly just removes indestructible, or actually hexproof, for the rest of the game while it sits there. Now we have one that not only gets to kill a creature when it enters the battlefield, but for the courtesy of 1 mana, you can always remove hexproof and indestructible. I don't know, man. It's a good card though, so expect it to see some amount of play. The Last Agni Kai, 1 and a red for an instant. Target creature you control fights target creature an opponent controls. If the creature the opponent controls is dealt excess damage in this way, add that much red mana. Until end of turn, you don't lose unspent red mana as steps and phases end. So my best guess, at least my first inkling here, is to play this in a Gruul type deck that has, mid to large size creatures. You pick off one of their things for 2 mana. Maybe you generate 2 to 3 red in the process, and you can use that for something else. But there are some weird corner case scenarios where you could pump up something with prowess, like a slick shot a couple of times, use this to fight something. Now you've generated like 5 extra mana or something, and maybe you just empty your hand. Sounds a little complicated, so probably not like that, but it probably shows up in weird places like that. Firebending Student, 1 in a red for a 1/2 human monk with prowess. It has Firebending X, where X is this creature's power. Alright, this is solid. Nothing crazy. It just does what it says it does. Just read the label. This is what you get. 2 mana, 1/2 with prowess. It attacks. It gets some extra mana during the attack step. I think this card actually might be low-key good. It's sort of hidden good because it doesn't read like it does a lot. But even just playing something to pump it with prowess, it attacks. Now you have 4 or 5 mana during your attack step. Use that mana to burn away a couple of blockers. Like, who knows? There's going to be a lot of things this card is going to enable. The Legend of Roku, and not your TV box thing. 2 red. It has Saga. So Chapter 1, exile the top 3 cards of your library till end of your next turn. You may play those. Chapter 2, add 1 mana of any color. That seems very meh, but okay. And then Chapter 3, you exile this and return to the battlefield transformed under your control, which gives you Avatar Roku. It is a 4/4 Firebending 4. Has pay 8, create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying and Firebending 4. Oh, wow. So check this out. You attack for 4. You just need 4 other mana, which you probably already have because you played this card a while ago. Then you just make a dragon. But it's not just the dragon. It's that now when you attack with the dragons, they're also generating mana that you can use with Avatar Roku to just make more dragons. Kind of busted. Kind of cool, though. Ran Shaw. 3 red for a 4/4 dragon. It has flying, Firebending 2. When Ran and Shaw enter, if you cast them and there are 3 or more dragon and or lesson cards in your graveyard, create a token that's a copy of Ran and Shaw, except it's not legendary. Then you can pay 4 mana. Dragons you control get +2/+0 till end of turn. So that's kind of cute. If it's later in the game and you have at least 3 lessons or dragons in your yard, you get 2/4/4 flying firebending 2 dragons for 5 mana. That's pretty good. Even just on its own, it's a 5 mana 4/4 that generates 2 mana every turn. But if not, you get 2 of them and then they attack and you automatically get to pump them. So you have 2/6/6s or 2/6/4s. Yeah, this could probably see some play in a couple decks, especially if you're looking to play lessons. Badgermole Cub. 1 and a green. I don't know why I almost said red there. 1 and a green for a 2/2 Badgermole. When this creature, I don't know why, that creature type is just funny. But yeah, it's a Badgermole. When this creature enters Earthbend 1. Again, turn a land into a 0/0 that gets a 1/1 counter on it. Whenever you tap a creature for mana, you add an additional green. So yeah, this is just decent. You pay 2 mana, you get effectively a 2/2 and a 1/1, because your land becomes a 1/1 that, if it dies, just re-enters the battlefield tapped. And then if you tap a creature for mana, you add an additional one, which basically means your land that's now a creature, at a minimum, now taps for 2 mana. If you have Llanowar Elves or something else, that's all just bonus. So yeah, this thing probably sees some amount of play, especially if you're playing other earthbending things, and then all your lands are tapping for multiples. Like, you could probably do some silly stuff with this. Aang at the Crossroads. 2 green, white, blue. So 5 mana for a 3/3 flying. When Aang enters, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature card with mana value 4 or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in random order. When another creature you control leaves the battlefield, transform Aang at the beginning of the next upkeep. And okay, so just the front side. It's a 5 mana for a 3/3 flyer that hopefully in 5 cards will find at least one more creature, 4 or less. So you get 2 creatures, one being a 3/3 flyer, the other variable. And then, oh, it just says whenever another creature you control leaves the battlefield. So it doesn't even care. So you could airbend one of your own creatures, and then the beginning of the next upkeep. So you probably do it during your opponent's end step. So during your upkeep, this transforms into Aang Destined Savior. So it's an Avatar ally that's a 4/4 flyer. Lands you control have vigilance. At the beginning of combat on your turn, Earthbend 2. So you turn a land into a 2/2, and then all your lands have vigilance, basically. Actually, not lands. It says land creatures, specifically. So you want to be playing this in something that's earthbending, but also able to use the front side. I think this card's good. It's a little bit complicated, but I do think it's good, and obviously leans on the side of earthbending to give you the benefit of the vigilance. So, yeah, it's fine. I think it's a little pricey. It's going to be a little hard to cast at times, but it is a good and useful card with a lot of value. Azula, Cunning Usurper. 2 blue, black, black for a human noble rogue that's a legend. It's a 4/4. Firebending 2. When Azula enters, target opponent exiles a non-token creature they control. Then they exile a non-land card from their graveyard. During your turn, you may cast cards exiled with Azula, and you may cast them as though they had flash. Mana of any color may be spent to pay these costs. That's a cool card. So a 5 mana 4/4, but your opponent has to exile a non-token creature and something from their graveyard. So you're going to get access to 2 spells. Now, it might be likely a small creature and some decent spell that's in their graveyard, but not bad. I mean, reasonable card. Earth King's Lieutenant. Green, white for a 1/1 human soldier ally with trample. When the creature enters, put a +1/+1 counter on each other ally creature you control. When another ally you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. I mean, if you're playing allies, yeah, obviously. And in multiples, this card's crazy, right? Because then you put multiple counters on things, and anytime you make an ally, they're growing. So, like, yeah, this is just a solid card. If you're playing allies, you're probably playing this. Fire Lord Azula. We got a lot of Azula. 1 blue, red, black for a 4/4 human noble firebending 2. Whenever you cast a spell with Fire Lord Azula, or while Fire Lord Azula is attacking, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So you get 2 free mana when Azula attacks, and then you can copy the spell. Like, yeah, this is just a good card. I don't think there's anything surprising here. You can use that mana during the attack step to play like 2 removal spells, draw extra cards twice. Like, a lot of things you could do with it. Now, again, you have to attack to put it at risk to firebend, but that's fine. It only the ability to copy only triggers while it's attacking, though. So you do have to take that into consideration. But I think the card is still reasonable. There's a lion turtle. 1 green blue for a 3/6 elder cat turtle. Has vigilance and reach. When the lion turtle enters, you gain 3 life. The lion turtle can't attack or block unless there are 3 or more lesson cards in your graveyard, but you tap it to add 1 mana of any color. I'm going to tell you a deck that wants this immediately is the one that plays the Fecund Green Shell, right? That wants all your stuff to have bigger toughness. This generates mana, which is really good. It buys you turns by gaining life. It can block slick shots all day because it's a 3/6 with reach. Yeah, this card already has a home in a couple of decks. It's really, really cool. I think this card will definitely get played. Sokka, Tenacious Tactician. 1 blue, red, white for a human warrior ally that's a 3/3 with menace and prowess. Other allies you control have menace and prowess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 white ally creature token. Yeah, whatever. Words on this are all good. It has menace, it has prowess, it's a 3/3. All your other allies get menace and prowess. You get extra creatures whenever you're casting stuff. Like, yeah, great. Go at it, Sokka. Ozai, the Phoenix King. 2 black, black, red, red. 7/7. So 6 mana for a 7/7. Human Noble with Trample, Firebending 4, and Haste. If you would lose unspent mana, that mana becomes red instead. Interesting. Ozai has flying and indestructible as long as you have 6 or more unspent mana. Oh, that's a weird wording. So, weird. So it has Trample, Fire Breathing, Haste. So you get a 6 mana 7/7 haster. But when you attack, you generate 4 mana. If you have a way to generate at least 2 more mana, then it'll have flying and indestructible until you get to the end of turn or whatever with that unspent mana. That's a weird card. It's kind of neat. I mean, the 7/7 Trampler Haste, like, that fits into some type of reanimator piles, I'm sure. But yeah, weird card. Kind of good, though. I mean, that's a lot of value for 6 mana. Uncle Iroh. So he's Iroh the Grand Lotus. 3 green, blue, red for a 5/5 human noble ally with Firebending 2. During your turn, each non-lesson instant and sorcery card in your graveyard has flashback. The flashback cost is equal to that card's mana value. During your turn, each lesson card in your graveyard has flashback 1. My goodness. So you get a 6 mana 5/5 with Firebending 2. You can play all of your lessons for 1 mana from the graveyard, and then everything else has flashback equal to its cost. Oh, yeah, Iroh's pretty sweet. Yeah, there's really nothing negative to say about this card, I don't think, other than it costs 6 mana. White Lotus Reinforcements. 1 green, red for a 2/3 human soldier ally with vigilance. Other allies you control get +1/+1. Obviously a card you're playing if you're playing allies. Uncle Iroh. 1 and your choice of either 2 green or red mana. 4/2 human noble ally. Firebending 1. Lesson spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. So little Iroh makes lessons cheaper. Big Iroh makes them cheaper from the graveyard. And you probably play them in the same deck since you need the other colors anyway. So, yeah, I'm here for it. Random card for lessons decks, but probably anything. But Zuko's Exile, just 5 generic mana. It's an instant lesson. Exile, target artifact, creature, or enchantment. Its controller creates a clue token. Actually, I will say this. In decks like, say, Black, where you don't have a good way to get rid of artifacts or enchantments a lot of times, if you're already playing, say, like mono black control type stuff, this could work as a spell. I mean, honestly, if you're playing an Ugin deck, right? Like, this is a colorless spell, so you'd get rid of 2 things. So this might actually go into a couple of different decks, weirdly. White Lotus Tile. 4 generic mana. For this artifact enters tapped, you tap it, add X mana of any one color, where X is the greatest number of creatures you control that have a creature type in common. Okay, so if you're already playing the theme deck of allies, elves, whatever it is, you just generate that much extra mana. So that's actually kind of cool. I don't mind that. Even in Commander, let's say you have an Elf deck, Sliver deck, Humans deck, whatever it is, this works for all that stuff. So yeah, simple card, thumbs up. I don't know if it'll see a ton of play in Standard, but could be a fun inclusion in Commander piles. And then a randomly quirky lesson here, but energy bending. It's just 2 generic mana for an instant lesson. Lands you control gain all basic land types until end of turn. You draw a card. I think this is interesting because if you are playing a deck that's trying to do like Aang, right, where you need all the different colors to do all the different bending, this is actually kind of cool because it just gives you access to all the different mana you might need. Or it even just lets you use your land to just cast any of these decks that you might want to jam a bunch of these characters in that have 3 different color pips in their cost, for example. So yeah, this is not a super surprising card, but it's a good utility card, and it also happens to be a lesson. Oh man, okay, I think we got through all the major cards. That was a lot. Y'all hung around for, I don't know what this is going to be, like 45 minutes plus. Thank you for hanging out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ring-a-ling, all the ding-a-lings. Make sure you're here. So we're going to review cards every day till the set comes out. But here's what I want to know. Here's a very cool thing. I want to know what decks y'all want to try to build or see on the channel first based on the cards we've seen so far. Because at least now we have an idea of what the set is and what characters are and what all the different themes are throughout the set. I'd be interested to see what your opinions are. But that's all of you for now. We'll see you next time.